Hi, this is Steve Mortensen, president of Miracle Comics, and I have 5 books to talk about today. Today's first one is G.I. Joe #1 from the 1980s. So this was a toy line. G.I. Joe as a franchise started in the 1960s, and then they reintroduced the characters in the early 80s with a cartoon and comic book. This is a 9.8 copy. It's a beautiful book. It's probably a $300 book. I remember when I was young, G.I. Joe was one of my favorite cartoons. I would come home from school and Transformers and G.I. Joe were like right next to each other, and I would sit and watch them. A lot of fun. Next book is Spectacular Spider-Man #27. This is the first Frank Miller art on Daredevil, and this predates Daredevil 158. This is a 9.6 copy. Real nice cover. Frank Miller, known for the Dark Knight series, the 300 series by Dark Horse, has become sort of a big celebrity in the comic book community. And back in the early 80s, he was just a regular comic book artist. He really didn't write any stories. He just did a lot of artwork. It wasn't until the Daredevil series that after this comic that he became known as being a writer as well as a comic book artist. The next comic is World's Finest #14. This is an old Golden Age book. I don't get many of these. I have some in my collection, but I specialize in selling Copper Age books, which are comics that are from the 1980s to about 1990, which is the time I was collecting as a kid. This book, World's Finest, is basically a team-up between Batman and Superman, and sometimes Robin. And this is a really early issue. Pretty nice for a 4.0, which is a VG. CGC has a 10-point grading scale, starts at 0.5, which is basically really beat but complete comic. A VG is a pretty solid book. It should have solid staples, a very readable copy. Frankly, VG copies that I have of certain of Golden Age comics that I have in my collection, I will either crack the case and so I can read the comic, or I'll just buy ungraded copies of VG books, because VG books, unless they're a key, there really isn't much of a difference in value between a loose copy and a graded copy. In fact, and sometimes graded copies can sell a little less than loose copies, because I think people are afraid of cracking the cases open. And maybe in another video we'll try cracking a case open, and I can show you how to do that. We talked about G.I. Joe. Well, Transformers was also launched in the 1980s. This is Transformers #44. It's a 9.8 copy. These books are really desirable at the moment in 9.8 condition. Transformers started with issue #1. It was originally going to be a 4-issue limited series, and they turned the whole series into a long series that lasted until I believe it was issue #80. And a lot of these mid-numbered books in the 40s to 50s, very desirable, hard to find. A lot of people read the books and they enjoyed them. And of course the toy line is fantastic. All of us kids of the 80s had Transformer toys. I still have some of mine in my office here, and they are real special. Last comic is Amazing Spider-Man #239. This is a 9.8 copy. So this is the second appearance of the Hobgoblin. 238 was the first appearance, and that's a really desirable book, and the 9.8 is really shot up in value. So is 239. The period of the 80s was a really great time for Spider-Man. Issue #252 came out, and he came out with the black costume. I think I talked about that in another video, about how that black costume eventually became Venom. Hobgoblin was pretty much his main foe throughout the 1980s. And then in issue 300, Venom first appeared, and then Todd McFarlane kind of made Venom Spider-Man's main villain. So it's a really nice copy. I'm selling all these on eBay right now in my eBay store. You can go to miraclecomics.com, and that takes you right to my eBay store. These are closing on July 29th on Sunday. But I just like to talk about comic books, and so I usually try to pick the top 5 that I'm selling for the week and just chat about them. Check them out, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Thank you.